first railway in Ireland was the Dublin and Kingstown Railway. It also had the claim of being the world's first ever commuter railway, and locomotives were needed. Although not necessarily as the nearby Dalkey Atmospheric Railway was trying to prove. Two locomotives, Hibernia, which was the first to run, and Britannia, would be the first locomotives in Ireland. Another first Ireland had in the early days of steam was the very first locomotive to be built by a company's own works, when the 220 locomotive Princess emerged from the Dublin and Kingstown Railway's Grand Canal Dock Works. In 1842, unfortunately, Hibernia would blow up. However, the legacy of this company lives on. Other companies, as time went on, moved to other locomotive company manufacturers. Most famously, Bury in England provided many early locomotives for Irish companies. As the years went on and railways spread across the country, with various companies being at their helms, the largest of which was the Great Southern and Western Railway, which controlled many of the railways to the southwest of the country, including the Cork to Dublin main line. This company was famous for building its own locomotives at Inchicore Works, the premier railway works in the country, and still is Irish Rail's engineering headquarters today. The most famous locomotive that the company ever built were the J15s, an 060 go anywhere, do anything machine, and which was by far the largest class of locomotives built in Ireland, at 111 built. The other major companies at the time, such as the Midland and Great Western Railway, Dublin and South Eastern Railway, and the Great Northern Railway, largely imported its locomotives. However, the GNR famously would build some of its own locomotives at its Dundalk works as well, such as the Great Northern Railway JT tank engines. In 1925, most of the Republic of Ireland's railways amalgamated into the Great Southern Railway. This company would financially struggle for most of its 20-year existence. They didn't build many locomotives, opting to rebuild some of the types that they had, with mixed results. Though, a few of the new build types were built during this time, such as the 800 class 460s, the largest steam locomotives in Irish history, built for the Cork-Dublin main line, and the 670 class, which were built for the suburban services that all those years ago were on the Dublin and Kingstown Railway's main line. During the Second World War, or as we call it in Ireland, the emergency, coal was more or less impossible to get. As before the war and since, all of the coal had been imported from the UK, which for some reason were unwilling to give it during a time of war. And Ireland's only natural coal reserves are described as only good for putting a fire out rather than getting it started. During this time, the Great Southern Railway would convert an astronomical amount of locomotives, considering how much money they had, to oil burning, and this would be a rather successful venture during the war. Now after it, most of these were converted back to coal, but the Great Southern Railway packed up in 1945 and it was replaced by CIE, which controlled all transport in the Republic of Ireland and decided that it needed to dieselise fast in order to gain independence from the coal reliance it had on the UK. Oliver Bulleid, CME of CIE at the time, decided to try and do an Irish version of his leader class that he'd done for the Southern Railway, this time powered by Ireland's native fuel of turf. The turf burner was okay, but it had a lot of the same problems that the Southern leader had, and diesel was clearly the way to go. By the late 1950s, steam was very obviously on the way out, and when the General Motor diesel locomotives began coming in, the end was near. In February 1963, all remaining steam locomotives that were still in service were withdrawn in an official act. Some of the types that lasted to the end included the J15s, the J26s, the B4 Bandon tanks, and so on. Various GNR steam locomotives that CIE had inherited during the split-up of the Great Northern Railway between the UTA, Ulster Transport Authority, and CIE in 1958 were then sold back to the UTA upon the end of steam in CIE. The UTA maintained steam on its passenger services up until 1966. Unofficially, some steam substituted for rail cars upon those failing. Steam in Northern Ireland would actually outlast all of the rest of the United Kingdom, with two NCC 264Ts working trains for new fill for the motorway projects. When this traffic wrapped up in 1971, the last steam locomotives were withdrawn from service. It is still possible to experience steam haulage on the main line today. The Railway Preservation Society of Ireland run steam train trips, and they have been operating since 1964. In their mainline running collection is J15 number 186, Dublin and South Eastern Railway Mogul 461, NCC Jeep number 4, and GNR locomotives number 85 Merlin, 131 Uranus, and 171 Slieve Gullion. 131 and 171 are currently in service, though 131 is about to go out of ticket, and 171 is only fresh back in service and still has to undergo a couple of tests before it's mainline worthy. It should, however, pass these tests and haul ex-CIE Cavan coaches for many years to come. Steam on heritage lines exists too, via the Downpatrick and County Down Railway, which have two Irish sugar locomotives, one of them is operational, and are currently restoring Great Southern and Western Railway number 90. Whitehead Museum, which is part of the RPSI, currently run ex-Guinness locomotive 3GB around the museum premises, so rides may be possible. There is also a couple of 3-foot heritage lines in the country, two of which currently run steam, with the Stradbally Railway's ex-Bord Namona Roisin running quite a lot, and the Cavan and Leitrim Railway's Nancy, hopefully soon to be joined by Drummond. This is of course not mentioning all the various steam locomotives on static display in various museums. I have glossed over a couple of subjects in this video, such as the Irish 3-foot gauge and of course Irish industrial locomotives. However, I believe they are deserving of their own separate videos coming soon, hopefully. So, thank you very much for watching.